Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Kyte Perspective on today's topic of managed services and drive your Oracle car like you stole it. Hello, Karina.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me. We can hear you.
Oh, there we go. I was still on my. Me again.
Excellent. So while we're kicking off, I just want to welcome everyone here in the room in Melbourne. So we have a small crowd of people who are all interested in the topic. So today we're going to host in Melbourne and in the room in Sydney. I think, Karina, you have a few people in Sydney as well?
I do. I have Ursula and I have Kevin that are both joining me. There's a couple of others that are tied up at the moment, but they'll join us shortly.
Excellent, brilliant. And while we're both in the room and connecting with each other, we're actually also live streaming the whole session onto LinkedIn. So fingers crossed there's no technical issues.
Fabulous.
What can possibly go wrong? All right, let me just swap over to a PowerPoint presentation and get this started. Just give me 1 second. Share screen, window. Here we go. And also with us is Rajesh. So Rajesh is actually also joining us from India. He was planning to be with us in person in Sydney, but had to help out with a family emergency. So thank you for joining us online, Rajesh.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Anita and Karina.
Excellent. So without further ado, so just a quick introduction around, who we are, who the presenters today here. So myself, Anita Pera, I'm the CEO and founder of Kyte Consulting. We've kicked off Kyte Consulting 3 years ago with the focus around driving strategic value to Oracle Cloud customers. And with that, we have offices across Australia at the moment and about a team of 30. And with that, I'll hand over to Karina to very quickly introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Karina Kanopka. I'm the Managed Services Lead for Kyte Consulting. So I've got a team of about, I think, 8 that are working on various managed service projects across utilities and higher education.
Excellent. Thank you. And then we also have Rajesh joining us as well. So Rajesh, maybe just a couple of words from yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Anita and Karina. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rajesh Krishnan, and I'm from Azure QA. I lead the product development for the platform, and we do a lot of test automation for Oracle customers around Australia, specifically around government, state, and federal government, working on ERP Cloud, HCM, and so on. Thank you.
Excellent, perfect. So a little bit about Kyte Consulting. So I've already stated, we kicked off Kyte Consulting about 3.5 years ago. I'm myself ex-Oracle consulting director. My business partner, Richard, was also ex-Oracle consulting. And we really, within the 3 years, we very quickly established ourselves as the Australian leader for experience-centric business transformations on Oracle technology. But one way I ask, what does that actually mean, experience-centric? And for us, it really is a 3-level conversation. So it's the customer experience first and foremost, but it's also the employee experience and how they adopt the platforms and how they get the value out of the platforms. And thirdly, with those 2 experiences, it's the business experience and how the organization is perceived in the market. So we're quite passionate, not only about technology, but about the value generation with technology, specifically as everything is moving at a quite fast-paced pace at the moment. And with that, I want to just very quickly introduce the agenda. So everyone who managed to join us in the room, we had a bit of socializing already over some sandwiches and some border, and now we're kicking off. So I'm going to kick off is what is strategic managed services and why it matters. Then Karina will talk you through how to work with Oracle around the upgrade management and what is the Oracle recommended best practice. And then we hear from Rajesh around automated testing, how we can manage all of this more efficiently, especially in the cloud products where we go into those quarterly upgrade cycles. Yeah. And hopefully we have a bit of time in the end around Q&A. But if you have any questions, jump in. It's not a large crowd. I think we have about 20, 30 people online and about 10 people in the room in Sydney. So we can keep it quite casual. So what is strategic managed services and why should you care? So the first question is, what is actually the difference between tactical managed services and strategic managed services? Does anyone have a guess? It's a good question because it's often not something which isn't talked about at all. So from my point of view, the tactical is really sort of the baseline. It's like the minimum viable product to keep the lights on. 3 things from my point of view are included in that. One is the support and ticket management. Of course, if you have a system issue, someone needs to come in and fix it. If the system is down and something is not working, you need help, whether it's from Oracle or your consulting partner or you have a tech whiz in-house who can help you. But that's sort of one part. The second part, if you do have an Oracle cloud product or any cloud product, you are in a regular upgrade cycle, right? Innovation is happening at the speed of light at the moment. Oracle itself is putting $6 billion into innovation and new functions and features development across the product stack in a year. So this is a lot. So no matter what products you have from Oracle around the cloud services side, there's quarterly releases. There's lots of new AI functions released, Redwood interfaces, add-ons, and other things. So it's not only that you have access to those functions and features, which is, can be potentially overwhelming to your team, but you also got to make sure you do the regular testing to make sure whenever the Oracle goes through the upgrades, nothing falls over on your end. So again, keeping the lights on is essential. The other thing is ongoing platform management. So depending on your bespoke configurations or setups, if you have, integrated into legacy systems, or if you have complex data queries running in the back end, or you have, very complicated, lengthy process which you've hard-coded into your system, you may experience latencies. Or you may experience system latency because you have internet issue, or your firewall is, too blocked up, or all sorts of other reasons. So it's also the ongoing platform management around performance and continuous sort of configuration so it remains usable for your business. So if anyone says, do you do managed services? I think this is the common industry understanding of what managed services is. But equally, it frustrates since the heck out of me personally, because I think organizations really leave value on the table by not actually moving into the strategic field. Because once we start looking at managed services from a strategic point of view, we actually look at business value creation. And what I mean by that? So first of all, if we talk about strategic value or business value creation, we got to understand what value do you want to create for the business. So what is our objective as an organization or as a department? or as a team, where do we want to move towards to? So we need to know what's the objective, yeah? Then based on the objective, right, we're going to look down into various categories to say, how are we going to achieve those objectives? First is business operations, yeah? So business operations is how are your employees entitled or empowered to make decisions? Is there, are you optimized in the way the team works together? Do your employees have the right skill set? Do your employees know how to use the system? How well are you functioning as a team? The other component is processes. There we're looking at within platform processes, but also the business processes and the processes to other business units. Because often we look at, let's say case management or field services or HR in isolation, but often it is also the case that the departments are actually connected with each other and not just chucking the ball over the fence to the next department, but actually looking at seamless business processes across the departments. The other one is of course, technology. I mean, I could ask you in the room and online, whoever is following us, is how well do you actually use the technology you have? Do you use it 80%, 90%, maybe 20%? Maybe you have modules you have never used at all because they were just part of the package, and you may have turned them on or not even turned them on and you're not using them. Or maybe you're missing a critical part of technology which would enable you to drive your business objectives home faster. So it's also the review of technology. And of course, the data. How clean is your data? How accurate is your data? How well do you have insights which enable you to make the right business decisions to meet your business objectives? And of course, the most important thing is the experiences. How well are our employees connected with the systems we've chosen to use? Do new joiners know how to use the platforms? Has there been change resistance in the adoption of a platform? How do our customers interact with us as an organization and with our platforms? So all of those things. If I talk about strategic managed services, it's not only the left side, it's actually also considering all of those right side items as well. And then the reason is why should you care about it? It's yeah, great, but we have a million things to do and this is just an extra thing of, why would we care about it? And the reason why you should care about it, because the aim, I'm assuming, of each organization is to get better in what we're doing, become more mature as an organization, lift the dial upwards to be more competitive, to be more efficient, to create better services and products for our customers. Because if we don't do it, it's a good chance a competitor will take us over, or there's a good chance that at some stage money will run out because we're just not working efficient enough. So this is what you're looking at here is just a very generic maturity model, right? This is just for illustrative purposes really only. But my pulse check is a lot of organizations are hovering around the transactional responsive state. But the objective really is moving towards relationship and maybe even experience engagements with technologies and processes so you can actually drive your better services to a price efficient point of view. So the objective is to move upwards in your maturity. And it's okay, if this is still a lot of theory, then the next question is, okay, well, I get it. Sounds all great. But practically speaking, how am I going to do this? And this is sort of the process. It's a 6-step process of what we have been recommending to our customers since actually quite a few years. And it starts with step 5, right? So assuming you have implemented your technology and the project team has rolled off and hypercare has finished and there's a backlog of things, you haven't managed to implement because you ran out of budget and time and the system had to go live, or the system has gone live and there's small tweaks what you want to do because the business has been moving on and you have other or additional requirements. So to start with the strategic managed services model, you kick off with your backlog of activities, What are the things we should be working on improving? Then you go into implementing it, So we are recommending here to work in a quarterly cycle in alignment with the Oracle quarterly business upgrades. You say you have 12 weeks to implement whatever backlog you have. You can choose to implement it yourself. You can choose to use offshore. You can choose to use Oracle Consulting or Kyte Consulting. It actually doesn't matter. As long as you know what you want to work on to improve wherever you are now, to move forwards to your goal. Once you implement it, we recommend to get the key people in your team together to review or report on it. And the review should again happen within the key people in your team, ideally your consulting partner, or managed services partner, and Oracle in the room as well. So you have an Oracle Customer Success Manager, get them in the room and say, this is where we're at. What's the system usage? You know, where are we doing well? How are other organizations performing who are like us in similar industries? What should we be doing, what we're not doing yet, to identify the gaps between where we are and where we need to be, to again prioritize your activities and to hit off the next quarterly actions, the next quarter of actions, to where you create the backlog and you implement. Yeah, so it's sort of the quarterly cycle where each quarter, and it doesn't matter if you have little budget or little capability, you move slower, but you still move forward. If you have budget and you have people, you can move faster and the improvements will come in faster. So it's not the message here is not the, chuck a whole bunch of money on it. It's the inspiration here should be just keep moving forward. Don't keep treading water, but try each quarter just to improve a few little things. And coming back to the holistic model, I just really want to hammer this home. This is not only about functions and features and data and integration points, but be clear about the objectives. Look at the processes, specifically with Gen AI and AI being embedded everywhere, specifically across the Oracle product stack at the moment. What functions and features can you adopt to improve your processes? Be critical about the technology you have and what you actually need to deliver your business objectives. Data, I have a saying, it's just like, crap in, crap out. So make sure your data is clean and never forget the human aspect. We just had a conversation before we opened the presentation here with a person in the room who said the user adoption is one of the hardest things because business is changing. People are coming and going. The platform is highly capable, but we feel like we're not really getting the value out of the system. And often this could be the human element of people maybe just winging it outside of the system. Maybe they don't know how to use it, or they haven't been trained, or is it just simply not clear? And, this is not a new model. So as Kyte or as Anita, I've been using this model before I kicked off Kyte. So it's a model we've implemented for multiple organizations across multiple business units since many, many years. And what we've seen again and again and again is organizations who are actually honing in on that model, on that quarterly review model, they have seen significant performance uplift over 18 to 24 months. So it doesn't kick in immediately, but it's the consistency of every day, every quarter doing a little bit. And that's my intro to why strategic managed services matters. And with that, I'm going to hand the ball over to Karina, who will then talk about how you can create that strong foundation. Because in order to do the strategic managed services, you still got to make sure the left side is actually working, and you're not back down with system issues which are not working. So, Karina, over to you.
Thank you so much, Anita. So yes, part of creating that strong foundation for managed services is looking at these three pillars, and Anita mentioned them before. It's ongoing platform management, support, and ticket management, and quarterly upgrade management. And these are the three things that I'm going to focus on now. The first one being ongoing platform management. When is it best to review your environment and look at the usage to determine whether or not your product is performing the best that it can? Best practices, I would say, would be looking at it on a quarterly basis. whenever there's any updates, whenever you expect usage changes, perhaps you're implementing something or there's a change in the environment and you expect additional, usage, or at the least on an annual basis. You want to be able to, monitor and review the usage from a pricing perspective too. What is it costing you if you're going above and below? Can you save any money there? That usage evaluation entails reviewing your environment, looking at architectural gaps, process improvement, and gathering current diagnostic information. You'll want to review workloads during peak and non-peak hours. Look at the size of the data that you're housing. Is there any old data in there maybe that needs to be archived? So review that over time, things build. If you see any changes to your usage and you expect them, you may need to purchase additional to fill your pool if you run out of capacity before your service end date, things like that. And you don't want to be caught off guard. The second piece is review your benchmarks and monitoring. Were there any outages? Has your data, or does your data need to be archived or migrated? Are you seeing an increased number of load or API failures in your integration process? Just are things working properly? By reviewing your benchmarks on a regular basis, you can spot those issues early. For example, a large increase in form responses. Is this expected? Did you implement something and you're expecting to see that, or is there another issue with increased form responses? You can't just set things and forget about them. You need to be monitoring so that you can catch any issues. Okay. Next slide. Now, taking into consideration the usage evaluation and the benchmark review, you should review your findings internally within your team or with a partner or with Oracle to talk about the challenges that you may be seeing, discuss common challenges others in your industry may be having, and what resolutions they've seen on a regular basis. So this is the quarterly discussion that Anita was talking about earlier. It slides right in here and can support that. Perhaps there's different ways that the product could be improved, and you have a suggestion that you want to put into the Idea Lab, for example. You can also get support and talk to people within forums like Ozorg, which we're a part of, or other Oracle communities. Things like Kyte Perspective will help as well to support you during those review processes and bringing in new information for you. Okay, the next part I'm going to talk about is, suppose you do have an issue, you spot something, well, where am I going to get support for that? So let's talk a little bit about Oracle support services and how to maneuver through that. I'm sure everybody's had experiences with Oracle support and how to enter in your service requests, but it's important that when there is a problem or you spot an issue, say in that usage evaluation, that you can go into Oracle support, search the Oracle knowledge base, work with your team on analyzing any business, analyzing the problem and root causes to gather all that information that you might need for that SR. You might also want to test the scenario in another environment before you log that SR, so that you're sure that there is an issue and you've got as much detail as possible. Next, you're going to monitor that SR once you put that in there. Hopefully the problem gets resolved and you can say, yes, we can close this SR and everything's sorted. In some cases, you may have to escalate. But first, I just wanted to point out, I know Oracle Support had a recent update, and their knowledge-based searching is all AI-driven now, which hopefully will help folks try to find information on their issue. Anita, if you go to the next page, just a few tips on kind of what's best.
Karina, sorry, just before we move to the next step, I'm just going to ask a question here just on behalf of customers. If a ticket is not resolved and, it's not a serve one ticket where everyone jumps on it and you get a fast resolution, but it's sort of a lower priority issue and it's not moving fast enough, what options do customers have to escalate?
Well, that's, one of the things that I was going to talk about.
Excellent. Then let me move forward.
Okay. Well, but you can reach out, to Oracle, follow this process, right? Yeah. This particular slide was just a few tidbits on searching through the knowledge base, but you can go on to the next slide, which talks about escalating if your issue is not resolved. So if you have a partner, we're definitely here, able and willing to help. All of us have, I think in the room here, have worked at Oracle, have a lot of context there, and can work with you to sort through that escalation. But this would be the process. You want to prepare and make sure that all that information is documented. Provide an accurate, well-defined statement with the business impact. Saying it's going to cost me this much if this is down, or there's an implementation risk. Provide what the business impact is, and then call and speak with the duty manager, or work with your partner to speak with the duty manager to escalate and work on a plan to resolve the issue. Hopefully, with going through this process, you can resolve and get the resolution that you want. If not, we'll need to take it to the next level, and we can help you with that, or your partner or Oracle can help you with that.
Excellent. Thank you. Help? Yeah, good. Awesome. Thanks, Karina.
Good. And the next slide, we're going to talk about upgrade management best practices. So before a quarterly update, you'll need to complete several preparation tasks. You might need to save or modify any user-defined reports, or stop or pause scheduled processes. And what to expect during an upgrade process is that it comes in two phases. The first phase will be an update for the non-production environment. So you're getting ready on that non-production to upgrade and be able to test any new enhancements that are being added, and look for any breakage that update may cause in your, maybe customized processes, that sort of thing. Phase 2 is the production upgrade. Okay, and so now I want to talk about what you're going to do kind of before, during, and after. If you want to go to the next slide. So in your project plan, it's best to plan, first of all, and make sure that you've got a clear plan of what tasks need to be completed before and after the update, including time for post-update testing, time to configure, including any additional functionality that's been added. Is that working for you? And then key, I think, here to your adoption point earlier, Anita, is that end user training. Make sure that the team knows how to use any of that new functionality. Hopefully, get them excited about any enhancements that have been added that they'll want to try.
Awesome. I have another question here, Karina, if you don't mind me asking. So let's assume I'm a really good customer and I follow the Oracle best practice recommended process, and I do the testing the week of the 8th or 9th. And let's say on Wednesday the 11th, I discovered that with the latest upgrade, there's stuff not working or there's things erroring out and I can't seem to fix it. But then, it's Oracle has scheduled the upgrade for the 20th. What are my options of not going ahead with that planned upgrade because we can't seem to fix the issue?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely say, time out, don't put this into production until we sort through whatever issues that we're having. And I'm sure everybody's experienced, this in the past. They found an issue where the process worked before. You can work with Oracle. It will stay in the test environment, and you'll need to use that test version. Even if you don't migrate into production for months, that will stay in your test environment. But you can say, hey, time out. I don't want to put this into production until we can resolve a few issues. So not a problem, and it does happen.
Awesome. Let's have a second scenario. So assuming I'm not such a good customer and I don't look at the quarterly upgrades and the thing is going to be rolled out in my production system regardless whether I've tested it or not around the 20th. So Monday the 23rd, the team comes back to the office and, oh my God, a critical function of the system is not working and half the business production comes to a halt. What am I going to do then?
Well, then you work with Oracle and through a partner to escalate that and get that rolled back out of production. I mean, it's definitely an effort, and I think that this is why it's important to do those evaluations and meet on a quarterly basis and know what's coming up with enhancements so that you can catch that sort of scenario ahead of time. Better to to spot that when it hits the test environment. And I think in most businesses you're putting things into test all the time with new work that you're doing, especially if you're on an agile process. You should spot that in the test environment, but you would have to escalate and request that be rolled back.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. As part of all of this process, before the quarterly update and your planning process, you want to make sure that you're also developing any test cases. So thinking about that as part of that process. Now I talked a bit about that planning. Now, as you're going through that planning process, you want to consider the sandboxes that you may have pending, that you may want to stop any testing or determine whether or not you can publish the sandboxes that you're currently using, or should they be even deleted. You may also want to move any modified reports, ensure that they've been put into a safe folder. Because even reports that are standard reports that you've updated, they could be overwritten during the upgrade process. So you want to make sure that you've set those aside and they're safe, as well as any deleted. As well as any delivered reports, seeded reports, things like that you have scheduled on a regular basis out to, say, executives. You want to review any of those. Let's see. It's important to remember and understand that quarterly process also is happening on a 2-week period. So make sure you utilize that full period in ensuring that there isn't anything that you've missed that might get written over. Go to the next slide. Now you want to suspend I think was there a slide before that, Anita? So suspend all scheduled processes. The one before that one, I think. Yep, there we go. Suspend all scheduled processes. So after your the application, the test application's been configured, you've done all of your changes, you want to suspend everything. You might want to schedule any jobs to be completed before that activity is going to take place as well, so that those jobs are completed before you start suspending any of those. Also, consider any heavy customization that you may have, because that will require a lot more testing when you're going through following the implementation. So during the update, you'll have, so the first week of the month will be the non-production environment that's updated. And then 2 weeks later, that's your production environment. And in most cases, as you were saying earlier, it's on a Friday, the first Friday of the month. Following 2 weeks, it will be then the 20th of the month, is in this example here. So it's incumbent that during that time, between those dates, that you're performing any testing that may need to be done to ensure that your staging, your test environment, your staging environment, any of that, and any business critical activities that might have been impacted are still working properly. And the next slide. So after the quarterly update, you'll want to finalize the process, look at any new documentation that's available, and pinpoint any new enhancements that you might want to use. Confirm that you've trained your users, update any metadata, and finish any testing. And then, of course, resume any processes that have been paused during that update. Now, testing can be manual or scripted. It just depends on how your business handles that. And it's a huge part of this overall process. And at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Rajesh, who's going to talk a bit more about that testing portion specifically.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Karina. Really interesting. So I just want to let everyone know, if anyone has any questions, you can just raise it in the room, or also just whoever is following us online on LinkedIn, you can just simply post a question in the LinkedIn events comment section and we can address it. But without further ado, Rajesh, over to you.
Thank you very much, Anita and Karina. So I would like to really talk about testing and how we do it. I think Karina has touched upon the importance of testing. Now, there can be a couple of different types of testing, especially when you're in project mode. You would do progression testing to make sure all the new features and functionality is working. But once you've done your hypercare and your support partner is moved on, and basically you need to do a fair bit of regression testing every quarter on quarter, like Anita and Karina were saying. Every quarter you need to make sure that all your functionality, your use cases and business cases are working as per normal. Few of the examples that I would take is procure to pay, order to cash, and all of those very critical scenarios to make sure that your business is functioning. So we built this platform called Azure QA, which is an automated cloud-based platform completely built on Oracle technology. So this was built about 5 years ago based on the market need. So a lot of customers went and implemented HCM, ERP Cloud in Australia. And what customers started to see is, sometimes 2 weeks is not enough to do optimum testing. And then what customers are starting to see is, things are starting to have issues. Now, Oracle does a very thorough testing internally, but when it comes to customer and your data and your workflow, it's very unique to the customer, as opposed to Oracle doing an overall end-to-end testing. So customers need to make sure that in that 2-week window, they have tested all their critical business functions to make sure that there's no regression issues coming. And that's how Azure QA was born. Customers didn't have the time, especially when people come in from BAU, doing your day-to-day processing in business. You may not have the time to spend on testing, and that's why automation testing is come on board to help you with that very critical function, like Karina was saying. So Karina shared us a calendar. So on a Friday in the US, when they release sorry, Anita, I'll just stay back on the previous screen. So on Friday, when there's a release happening in the US, which is about Saturday midday, we can schedule these tests to run. So a typical customer would have about 200 to 250 test cases in ERP Cloud or HCM. We would schedule these tests to run on a Saturday afternoon. So when you come back on a Monday or a Tuesday, all 250 odd test cases are run. So basically, you're saving a lot of time in terms of running the test cases. So basically, you would look at what are some of the anomalies. So what test cases failed. So that saves you a lot of time from having to do these mundane testing tasks. Whereas you can spend more time to make sure that you're doing perhaps progression testing. So as you go along with your releases through the year, and as you take on new functionality, you can get these, I would say, bots to test all these existing functionality. So for that, we have used a lot of technology like AI, machine learning, to make sure these scripts don't fail. AI takes over a fair bit of script healing, because these scripts have to be maintained as we go along. Because as the functionality moves with new features and updates coming along, we need to make sure that these functionalities keep getting updated as well. So customers came to us and said, look, we don't have the time to update these test cases. So as part of managed services from Kyte, we provide that service for you guys. So you don't have to go and worry about a test case. You don't need to worry about the test data. You don't need to worry about tools and how it's hosted and things like that. So we work very closely with Oracle to host this on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, and we provide this as a service as part of managed services from Kyte. So once you move.
Sorry, Rajesh, to interrupt. Sorry, a question. And then if a customer says they have 100 test scripts they want to give us to automate, is it correct as a customer can run the test script as many times as they want?
Absolutely. Yeah. They can run this any time of the year. They can run this any day of the month. But typically, we run about 4 to 5 times in a year as you go through a quarterly update. But then there's nothing stopping us from running this on a daily basis. Now, we have customers like Department of Jobs and Precinct, New South Wales Health in Sydney, who run this many times in that 2-week window to make sure that things are working. Right, and things are working as per their requirement. Now, I'll just quickly run through that through this couple of that what we have. So it's a 5-step process. So we onboard the customers, we capture your unique configuration and save that into Azure QA. We run this as a automated change management as well, to make sure that any changes that has happened between, say, 24A and B, we factor that change in as well in that quarter. Run these releases, validate that the scripts are working, and then we can also do auto health checks to monitor what are some of the transactional performances. Now, procure to pay, say in a particular release, may take to run about 5 minutes, but maybe in the next release it's taking about 10 minutes. So there's a bit of a performance degrade. Now, that's something that we can report through our managed services SR to Oracle and say, look, something's happening. Is it something happening on the Oracle side, or is it something happening within our own data structures or workflows and things like that? So these are some of the things that we can pick up as we go along. And then finally, we do a review, sitting with the customer and making sure that yes, all the test cases have passed and we're happy to move into production and do a sign off. So it's not just an automated tool as well. It's mainly the methodology that we bring in, the processes that we bring in, and also these all ties up to the test strategy. So it's very important to have the test strategy and methodology as we go with this testing journey. So if you can just move to the next screen. So some of the features of the platform now, Nita, I've got some screenshot as a backup because with some of the live demos, you never know what's going to go wrong. So I'll try and present from my end, Anita, if that's all right.
Sure. So you want to share your screen?
Yes, please. Yep.
Of course. You can easily do that by pressing the present button at the bottom.
Yep. Yep. I'm just doing that while we speak. So just to confirm, can you see my screen there, Anita? You can just
not yet. No. Yeah, here it is. Got it.
Yep. Awesome. So this is a live instance sitting out in OCI instance in Sydney. So as soon as you log into Azure QA, you can see a dashboard of all test cases that's there in the system, what test cases have passed, and we can see some of this progression as we go month on month, and how many test runs, how many test cases, and so on. Now it's a very intuitive application. So now we built this keeping in mind that this may be used by non-technical staff in the organization, and it can also be used by technical staff who know how to write JavaScript and Java and so on. So I'll just quickly bring up some of our pre-built test cases that we've done for ERP Cloud. Now, with ERP Cloud, we've catered for accounts payable, receivables, general ledger, fixed assets, cash management. So we've got test assets for all of these different modules. Now, here we can see a history of all the test trends, as you like. How many? So the green is good, and the red means there was a defect, which means obviously few of the previous runs have run as passed, but now we've got a failure. Now that's important to track as we go through a quarter on quarter to make sure that we are not regressing and in fact we are progressing. Now a test case would look like that, very intuitive conversational like test cases. So navigate to click on set the user ID, set the password, click on sign in. So it behind this there's a lot of Java scripting that's going on, and that we have not exposed because we want to make sure that this is run by typical business users. Now when you're in a project mode, you might have a large technical team, but once the project team has moved on and you moved into managed services, you may not have the luxury of having those technical team within the organization, and hence we've catered for that as well. So we've got a set of keywords which is purely English like, so navigating to very, very easy to understand. So you navigate to a particular page, click on that, click on the user ID, set the password, and then click on procurement and move on. Now all these like URLs and user IDs is all configurable. So you might have multiple test pods. Like Karina was saying, you've got a system testing pod, you got a system integration testing pod. And if you want to run these test cases across multiple pods, you can very easily do that because we've got a global data bank where we save all these invoice numbers which are generated on the fly, invoice amount. So we can configure this to run across multiple instances as well. So it saves a lot of time for the customer. Now, the other important feature is also called a test flow. Now, test flow is basically looking at your end-to-end process. Like procure to pay might have about 15 test cases, individual test cases, like creating a supplier, creating a purchase requisition, converting that purchase requisition into a purchase order, then invoicing, and then receipting, and so on. Now, all those can be built into a flow chart kind of a model so that you can clearly see all the different steps that an end-to-end business process would go through to achieve, say, procure to pay or order to cash and so on. So you got that very transactional flowchart based representation. Now I'll just pick one of the test reports. So I'll take an example of HCM in here. Now, HCM can have multiple scenarios like onboarding an employee, managing their absences, managing their performance and goals, and a number of different scenarios. Now, if I click on one of these reports, and this is where the bang for the buck. Like everything happens at the end to see whether test case passed or failed and so on. Now, as once the testing is done, it basically captures screenshots. Now, this is very important, especially if you're doing, if you got audits happening externally to prove that, before a test is gone, before a need satisfies your requirements as well. And you can use this as your training document as well. If you've got new team members coming into your organization, you do a procure to pay transaction and so on. Now off late, Oracle is pushing all the customers to move into Redwood changes. Now we've factored that into our testing as well. Basically, we would compare two screens to make sure that the two screens look and feel alike. Especially with Redwood changes, there's a lot of workflow changes now. Traditional testing may not pick up some of these visual changes. Now we've given a chat GPT kind of prompt engineering type of test case authoring as well. So as you can see in this particular screen, you're expecting the screen to look like this, but the actual screen has got we've just forced a little icon there called R on the top left on the actual screen. Now here it does the comparison and gives you in plain English saying that there's all pixels look the same except for this R here. Now that's very important, especially in the coming year. Everyone needs to be Redwood compliant. Now this can save a lot of your time in terms of making sure that your Redwood changes have been implemented and implemented correctly, which is very important. So as you can see, it goes through all these steps, and then it captures screenshots as it goes along. Now, the good thing is we can schedule these tests to run, like I was saying, on a Saturday afternoon. Let it run through your 200, 300 odd test cases. When you come back on a Monday morning, or worst case scenario on a Tuesday morning, you got all your test results ready for you to review. Now, you wouldn't have to review all your 200 odd test cases. You would just have to review the anomalies. Like if green is good, which means your test is passed. But if there's a red, which means it's a failure, or if it's an amber, that means there's some something that has happened which is not as expected. But the tests have gone through because it's probably not that major. But you can still look at your ambers and your reds to make sure whether you need to raise an SR, or was it maybe the test script would have failed because the system was very slow and the test script failed. So in terms of your testing time frame, you're saving a lot of time, and not just saving a lot of time, but you're testing more at a less number of hours, if you like. Or you can use this to test all your existing functionality, and your new functionality can be tested in a manual way. And in the next quarter, you can use all those test cases to be part of Azure QA, so that you progressively build your regression test scripts. So over a period of time, you would have more than 250 test cases, because your user adoption has gone up. So that means your number of functionality has increased. So between say year 2025 and 2026, you probably have about 25% increase in your test cases, and that in our pricing we factor that in as well. So which is great because you don't have, it's a one-time pricing for the whole year. You don't have to worry about, if I've got 20 or new test cases, do I need to pay more? No, the way we structure our pricing is we factored all that into our pricing, and we made that like a subscription model where we add that onto your managed services payables. Sorry, someone tried to ask something. Sorry, Anita.
No, I think everyone's good with questions.
Okay, cool. So just looking at the time, I think we've got another 5 minutes, but I could go on and on and on. But a long story short, we've got your testing covered. We're very important, I guess, part of the managed services, like Karina and Anita were saying. And it's these test cases are there for you, pre-built test cases, so you can extend into your data and into your workflows. So yeah, so with that, I'm happy to take any questions, or I can take that as part of Q&A. Back to you, Anita.
Excellent. Thank you, Rajesh. I love what you guys do there, and I think also I have a question actually. So together with Kyte, is it correct to assume that we can cater across the whole Fusion stack for automated testing services? And with that, I mean CX, HCM, supply chain, finance.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. So we've got pre-built scripts for most of these modules. I wouldn't say we've got for all of them, but we've got most of the modules which the customers can extend. And if there's any new, especially if you're using PaaS and you've configured your environment, those are some of the sticky test cases, as I would call it, to onboard, which can be easily done.
Yeah, awesome. Because I think that's really powerful as well. So what I see a lot with organizations is that they have multiple different solutions potentially configured or integrated, and this quarterly upgrade cycle where they really should be testing. I think having automated testing is a real win, because it just you just press the button, it runs through, and each quarter or twice a year, you just add any additional configurations you may have built in the meantime into the automated test scripts. And from there on, you can just let it run, and any errors, you just, your human resources only need to look at any errors which pop out.
Absolutely. And I think you brought a very important point there. In terms of integration, it's not just integrations within Oracle, but outside of Oracle as well. So we've got, some of the government customers using Salesforce for doing multiple different things, which then pushes data into Oracle. So we can factor the Salesforce testing as well. Or if you're using some of the other HCM products from one of the other competitor, because it's a SaaS world, right? You could have multiple different vendors, and we can factor all that into this platform. So it's an enterprise-grade platform.
Yeah, awesome. Excellent. Well, that really brings us to the end of our presentation. I'll just very quickly, I guess, share the screen again to say, as a business, we do cater for full front of house and back of house Oracle Cloud Application Stack. So whatever, versions you have, don't be shy to reach out if you want to discuss this any further. With Kyte Consulting, we're operating across a range of organizations and industries, from mid-sized to really large organizations. And of course, we always focus on connected strategy, connected data with one team to drive the connected experience. And with that, we're at the end of our session. If there are any questions, please pop them into the chat channel. We can address them a bit later on and get back to you, or just simply send us an email and we can speak at a later point in time. But I really want to say thank you, Karina and Rajesh, for co-hosting this with me and presenting. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Anita.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
We turn off the streaming now. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for everyone who joined us online.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.